Washington. President Trump cut short a television interview on Saturday after being asked about his unsubstantiated claim President Barack Obama had spied on him, reviving an incendiary charge even as his re-election campaign released its first advertisement taking aim at fake news. In the interview, which was timed to place a capstone on his first 100 days, Mr. Trump resurfaced allegations made in a bombshell Twitter post from early March that Mr. Obama had tapped his phones in Trump Tower, saying that while the former president had been very nice to me, the two have had difficulties. "You saw what happened with surveillance," Mr. Trump said, declining to elaborate. Asked by John Dickerson, the host of Face the Nation, "What does that mean, sir?" Mr. Trump said, "You can figure that out yourself." When Mr. Dickerson asked whether Mr. Trump stood by his characterization of Mr. Obama as sick and bad, the president appeared to become agitated and said, "You can take it any way you want. I have my opinions," Mr. Trump continued, as Mr. Dickerson tried in vain to ask him for an explanation. "You can have your opinions." The president then ended the interview, saying, "Okay, it's enough." The testy exchange, which was shown Monday, was at odds with the image of competence and message discipline White House officials have labored to show over the past week, as they have tried to demonstrate progress around Mr. Trump's 100-day mark, a time frame the president rejected as ridiculous but has gone out of his way to frame as an unparalleled success. As part of the effort, Mr. Trump on Monday released a triumphant campaign advertisement declaring his first 100 days a triumph, and questioning the way the media has covered him. The 30-second television advertisement, and a series of more targeted versions that are to run online are the latest examples of Mr. Trump's extraordinarily early return to campaigning at a time when most presidents would be spending their time pushing through their highest legislative priorities. It follows a frenetic period in which Mr. Trump sat for several interviews with representatives of the very media he has publicly criticized, and dispatched his top advisors to provide virtually non-stop briefings for them. The president and his aides made the case that he had accomplished significant things since taking office, despite Mr. Trump's lack of major legislative achievements. "America has rarely seen such success," the narrator says in the ad, listing the confirmation of Justice Neil M. Gorsuch to the Supreme Court, companies investing in jobs in the United States, the elimination of regulations that kill American jobs, and the approval of the Keystone XL pipeline. The ad also mentions the biggest tax cut plan in history, without mentioning that Mr. Trump has yet to offer any legislation, or even a set of policy prescriptions, for reordering the tax code to achieve the enormous cuts for businesses and individuals that he has endorsed. "You wouldn't know it from watching the news," the narrator adds, showing the faces of anchors, mainstream news broadcasters as the words "fake news" flash across the screen in large red letters. But Mr. Trump's snub of Mr. Dickerson encapsulated the president's paradoxical relationship with the media he professes to loathe but refuses to ignore. He takes pains to hide it from his supporters, but Mr. Trump's public churl is often followed by private charm. Shortly after cutting short the interview on Saturday, Mr. Dickerson flew with the president on Air Force One and then had dinner with him, according to a person with knowledge of the interaction. "I love your show," he said sarcastically to Mr. Dickerson at one point in the interview. "I call it deface the nation." Yet the levity evaporated after Mr. Trump returned to his accusations that Mr. Obama conducted surveillance of his campaign. Congressional investigators from both parties have said they have uncovered no evidence to support Mr. Trump's claims. But congressional Republicans and White House officials have said that some communications of Mr. Trump's associates were picked up as part of routine surveillance conducted by American intelligence agencies. While the White House has sought to project a more disciplined image, Mr. Trump has reverted to his favorite political gear, picking fights and, at times, saying the first thing that pops into his head, giving free range to his opinions, grudges and unique interpretations of American history, and insisting on superlatives to describe his achievements. The ad released on Monday does not mention Mr. Trump's failed attempt to push through a health care overhaul, after having vowed that the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act would be his earliest priority. Nor is there any reference to his attempts to crack down on illegal immigration, which have largely stalled. Congress has refused to provide any money for the border wall, was his most talked about campaign promise. And courts have blocked 2 of his efforts to bar travelers from 6 predominantly Muslim countries, and to defund sanctuary cities that refuse to help the federal authorities track and deport illegal immigrants. The TV advertisement is paid for by Mr. Trump's re-election campaign, for which he filed papers in January, on the day he was sworn in. The campaign said it would spend $1.05 million to air the ad across the country, a relatively small sum that does not indicate a major national public relations offensive. But it underscores Mr. Trump's remarkably early return to partisan politics. A strategy has included a series of re-election campaign rallies, began only weeks into his presidency. The latest such gathering was in Harrisburg, PA, on Saturday night, timed to coincide with the annual dinner of the White House Correspondents' Association, which Mr. Trump declined to attend. He took a red meat political tone as he reprised the populist themes of his campaign, and angrily denounced the news media.